Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Westie Magnuson.
Howdy.
Howdy to you, West.
How you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right, man. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
I live in Portland, Oregon. I've been here for about 6 years. I've got three boys. Anders is 2, Solomon is 6, and Jones is 8. And I've been married to my wife Amanda, coming up on it's been over 10 years now. I think we're coming up on 12. My day job is I'm a sales manager for a local company that does service industry. And then recently I've started working on the side hustle, which is small grind coffee.
And that's your own business.
Yeah. Yep. One man on a man up.
How did you choose to start this business with coffee? Is this just because you've been involved in sales for so long that you figured you might as well sell a product that you created to kind of make your own start?
Yeah. There's, been a few different pieces to the puzzle. The stuff I've learned in sales and business to business sales and small business has definitely kind of led me to where I'm at now. I'm also just really into specialty coffee. I like trying different micro roasters locally, and then just through mail order services like Trade, you can try what different ones that you're interested in trying all across the country. And then I just have been manual brewing for a long time, either with like AeroPress or a Chemex or a V60, and that's kind of like my morning ritual when I get into the office, and then I do a lot of that at home as well.
I'm guessing you tackle it from the sales aspect of it. Like, what's a good thing to start that's really easy to sell? Fucking coffee.
Yeah, I'm a really practical guy and I don't have capital. So I'm like, where's something, that I can basically get started with just like, honestly, the way I started it is I just saved all the money I got for my birthday last August actually. And I was like, dang, I'm not rolling in it. I'm like, I got, about a couple $100 here. What can I do to turn that into something that can keep the wheel turning? And getting green coffee is really affordable. Um, I found that out just through my relationship with uh, in sales. I met this guy that was a wholesale seller for a specialty coffee company, and he's like, "Hey, I'll set you up with a portal so you can just buy our coffee at wholesale." And I'm like, "That's cool, thanks, man." When I started buying it at wholesale, I'm like, "Man, if they can afford to sell it at wholesale for this, it must be really cheap to buy it green." And
Yeah,
then I
like
looked in.
a giant thing of Folgers is like $10, but then Walmart recently bumped it down to like $8 for like one of those giant containers. And I'm like, I wonder what the wholesale value of like Folgers coffee is. I mean, a coffee's not that expensive. It's probably one of the best ventures to get into if you're going to start a business on anything, just because the amount of product you can get for a small amount of money too, it's more like you have a more of a chance of making a profit rather than losing.
Yeah, for sure. And right now, it's not, I wouldn't call it a second revenue stream. I'm, reinvesting. Well, there's two things. One thing is a dollar from every bag sold, I'm putting back into skateboarding locally. I'm a skateboarder. I've been a skateboarder for a long time, and I've volunteered with this local organization that's a free skate park for kids for about 3 years. I've been volunteer staff there.
Like
And
skating,
basically,
keeping the kids away from drugs.
yeah, I mean, just giving them, yeah, keeping them away from drugs, giving them a safe, dry place. That's important in Portland where they can just come for free and skateboard. And a lot of the kids in the neighborhood where we're set up at is like, if they break their board or if their board, has seen better days, it's not like it's a big deal for them to go buy another one. It's not like they can just say, "Hey, Dad, give me $100. I'm going to buy a skateboard." Like it's kind of a middle low income area. So I just am from the beginning, I wanted something bigger than just making a profit. So I've bought in two complete skateboards now, and I just kind of store them at that place where I work, and I let everyone else on staff know. I'm like, hey, if the kid seems like he really could use a setup, like just grab one of these and give it to him.
See, that's the thing too that we need to bring back. I really wish people were more into skateboarding. I haven't done it in a while myself because I kind of fell out of it a little bit. But I mean, it was so knowledgeable too, skateboarding. I don't think anybody really realizes like how much you can intake from just where you live by just skating around and noticing so many small things that you drive past every single day. I mean, back in the day, there were kids that were going outside like, "Don't leave the street, don't leave the corner, don't leave the town." Used to skate around. I used to skate around town with my friends, and we used to like, sit in front of the movie rental place back when Blockbuster was a thing. And we used to eat airheads right on the sidewalk and just watch people go by, learn a little bit, and be out in the world and experience stuff. Of course, we have our scabby knees, our broken arm stories, but it's lost now. Like you look and see how much the world has changed just in a small amount of time from when I was probably 14, 15 years old to where I'm at now at like 22. And I don't see a lot of kids really skateboarding on the street anymore, riding their bikes. They're mostly inside the house. Their parents are driving them places. I get it, but it's like they're missing on one of the realest aspects in the world, which is really getting to know where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree. It kind of stemmed in the early days. It was more a mode of transportation than, like I don't know, a hobby or a lifestyle. It was just like, hey, I want to go get some candy at 7-Eleven, so I hop on my skateboard to do that.
That was one of the toughest choices in my life was trying to figure out what candy I wanted at 7-Eleven. So I feel you on
Right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Too many damn options. Do I want peanut M&Ms or do I want a Milky Way? I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Death by decision. It's like the same way these days on the cereal aisle. It's like, man, how much space? It seems like there's two full rows now in grocery stores just for cereal.
Honey Smacks all the way.
Yeah, man.
If you
Those are
have $5, just drop a box of Honey Smacks down on the counter. Everyone backs up.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, we can talk about skateboarding though, but when it comes to skateboarding, like, are you the dad skateboarder? Like, you have 3 kids, so when you say you're a skateboarder, do you actually do tricks? Do you like just skate around? Like for me, I was a longboarder, but I started off on a skateboard. I just put longboard trucks and wheels on it, so I could end up just pushing once and just cruising. Do you like doing the tricks, the ollies, the kick flips? I tried it once and I hit myself in the nuts, so that was enough for me.
Yeah, no, I do. I started in high school, so I started a little bit late, by today's standards. It seems like kids are starting in, kindergarten. But yeah, I started in high school before, I went to college or got married or had kids or any of that. But totally, I'm a dad now, 3 boys, so definitely a dad skateboarder. Um, but I'm having, man, when I'm at the place is called Skate Church PDX. It started in '87. It's the oldest skate park in Oregon. And when I'm skating with those kids, usually on Tuesday nights, I do it. That's with the high school group. And I mean, I'm just skating with them and I'm learning just like they're learning. Like, man, I'm having a blast. I've done lots of, volunteer work and other things like that in my life. And I'll be perfectly honest, sometimes it feels like work. But when I'm hanging at skate church with these kids, it's like, man, I'm just skating with some cool guys that are like, they're hyped on what I'm trying to learn, and I'm hyped on what they're trying to learn, and we're just progressing together. And I just have a blast.
Yeah. See, I bet you have the tech deck set in your office, don't you?
I don't actually. I never got to that level of nerddom.
Dude,
Um,
I'm telling you, some of the people that couldn't skate for shit could tech deck like a motherfucker. I
I
was
don't understand it honestly. Like I'm not all that good. I would say I'm like medium. So like I can kick flip. Like if I try a kick flip 10 times, I'll probably get it at least 9. I don't know how anyone could ever kick flip a tech deck with their fingers. It blows my mind. I don't understand it.
oh man, that used to be such a big thing too. I just hit myself with a wave of nostalgia bringing that one in.
Man, I don't. The only tech deck thing I'm working on right now is I am as just kind of a fun little inside with the coffee thing is I'm trying to work on custom tech decks that have the mall grab logo on the bottom of them because I think that my customer base would be really hyped on that. So that's as far as my tech deck goes right now.
Now, why mall grab coffee?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked. So mall grabbing is kind of originally it was like a derogatory term for like a poser, someone who like basically you hold the board, you hold it by the trucks so that the grip tape's facing your pants, and like you just hang out at the mall holding the skateboard. So like you look the part, but you're not actually you can't do anything.
Ah, like the guy that brings a fucking guitar to a party and doesn't know how to play it.
Exactly. So my concept is like I'm recapturing that term and I'm using it as a positive thing. And like for my coffee, Like I can get to a pretty high nerd level with it. You know, some people might call it snooty or snobby, but my whole concept with the brand is like, hey, just because that kid doesn't know what he's doing, he still likes skateboarding. Like he's still part of our culture. He's still spending money in the industry. And I feel the same way with coffee. Like you don't have to be a manual brewer at home and like have your own grinder and measure and weigh it all out and use an AeroPress like I do. You can just buy mall grab beans, grind them the way you always would, and put them in your Mr. Coffee machine. And you're still going to be like, wow, that's a lot better than Folgers. And that's all it needs to be.
Well, the typical like judgment thing when it comes to like skateboarders, I mean, there's definitely a judgment factor in there. I was at fault for doing it myself. You see someone that didn't know how to skateboard, they would just carry it around all the time, like that guy's a poser, that guy's this, that guy's that. But where you see it twice as bad is in the coffee industry. "Oh, bro, you don't even like coffees. You like Starbucks, bro. That's mainstream." I'm like, "What the like?" Me, coffee's coffee. I'm not too particular on what it is. If it is warm, I'll drink it. That's probably not
Mm-hmm.
a good lifeline to kind of live by because I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
urine can be warm at one point. But when it comes to just the taste of it, like I was going to buy Folgers the other day and I'm just walking in there and I see, oh, there's a clearance donut shop coffee on sale for $3 less than the Folgers and it's twice the amount. I'm like, well, screw it, I'll buy that. And that's what I'm drinking now. Caffeine just never really impacted me that much. Honestly, I used to drink it black and I'll put a little bit of syrup in it now, but there is a distinct difference I really never noticed until recently when I was sent some coffee. And the smell of it, like, even when you're brewing it up, you can tell by the strength of it, the dark, the medium, the light. I thought it was all the same shit, and I think that's just because we're too quick as people to consume something without really enjoying it.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of my favorite things about, brewing, manual brewing homes, especially coffee at home, is like, I'm opening every day. It's like a little ritual. And I'm like, I smell the beans when I open them, and then they smell different after I grind them. And then I start the brewing process and it smells different again. And then honestly, there's like phases and taste change from when you first drink it and it's at its hottest, and then it gets like regular drinkable temperature and it tastes a little different, and then when it starts to get almost a little too cold, it tastes a little different. And that's not for everyone though. Like people all have that level of something they're interested in. I find you just got to find what it is, and it's not coffee for everybody, and it doesn't need to be. If someone's just wake up in the morning and then they want to hit the button on their Keurig and get a K cup and get going, like I don't have a problem with that. Like my mission is not to convert them to a manual brewer.
Okay, so when we look at so many people that do homebrew coffees or pour over coffees, there's a distinct sense of entitlement when it comes to it, right?
It's as I've gotten into, I hesitate even to say this, the industry more because I've only been doing it for a few months, but like that's definitely like the outside looking in is how it seems. It's like, man, we're snooty. It's like, man, don't you dare even say the word Starbucks to me. But as I've kind of gotten involved in a couple different like groups and communities, it's like, just the other day, we have this Instagram group of just a lot of people that like to homebrew and share their different recipes. And they send a picture and they're like, oh, guys, I did a bad thing. And it was just a picture of them holding like a Starbucks Frappuccino. And everyone in the group was like, hey, I've been there. Sometimes you're just craving that sugar bomb. It's another one of my favorite things is The Simpsons, which I think comes through with the branding and just kind of the vibe we're putting out. But like one of my favorite quotes is Homer goes to this place to order a drink and it's clearly supposed to be a Starbucks, but it doesn't say Starbucks. And he's like, hey, can I have one of those coffees? It's actually a milkshake. and I just, but it's, sometimes that's what you want, man. You just want that sugar bomb. You just want to drink it.
Well, it's like everyone complains about Starbucks, and I'm like, it's only so popular because when it came out, it was like the forefront for any coffee shop. Besides going and getting Folgers at the store that your grandparents used to drink or the basic coffee, there was something else now. It had flavor to it, and a lot of people like that's what you're buying when you go to Starbucks. It's a fucking milkshake. It's nothing more than that, to be honest with you. You can get it plain, but that's not the reason why you go to Starbucks. You want the caramel brulee frappuccino. You want the unicorn double pump, sprint, frints, pop, jizz, whatever the hell in your coffee. You want that flavor to it. But I don't know. When I look at it, I mean, yeah, it's good, but they do so much more now. Like you go, I want a coffee, and you tell them the coffee order. Then they're like, what else do you want? And I'm like, what? Like, what else do you want? I'm like, what else do you have? Like, do you want an egg sandwich? You want a croissant? You want a pastry? You want a fucking CD? I'm like, whoa, like, is there another way to be able to enjoy this maybe in a different form and a much purer form too? Because those things aren't fucking healthy.
Right. And I think a lot of people are quick to point to what you said too. Like Starbucks paved the way for specialty coffee how it is today. So people can hate on it all they want, but the fact is, specialty coffee wouldn't be available to the consumer like it is now if Starbucks hadn't come on the scene and been so successful. So for a lot of people, it's kind of a gateway, for lack of a better term. They like start going, and then initially they're going like you say, they're going to get their milkshake, and then for whatever reason, sometime they decide to just try just a Americano black with nothing in it, and they're like, "Man, that really tastes different. I wonder why that is." And then it kind of piques their interest, and they're like, "Maybe next time I'm just going to try a shot of espresso to see what that's like, or maybe I'll try, a cup of black." And I'm like, "Man, there's a lot going on here that I never noticed because of all the sugar I'm usually having with it."
Yeah, and especially after you drink one afterwards, you don't exactly feel very good.
I mean, I have a couple drinks I can get there. I have with my day job, I meet with people all the time, and they always want to meet at Starbucks, and I'm always like, "Man, we live in Portland. Like, there's so many coffee places here that aren't Starbucks." But you can't have that conversation the first time you're meeting a prospective client. You're just like, "Yeah, cool. Which one do you want to meet at? There's only about 200 of them."
Yeah, you can't have a meeting with somebody if some dude's in Starbucks on his fucking Bluetooth. Like every time I go in there, there's a
Yeah,
dude talking. What? Oh no. Oh, what? No, I don't own a home. I don't buy insurance for my home. No, no.
yeah,
He's having a full
yeah,
on conversation. I'm just looking at him like, dude, I will rip that thing out of your head. I will.
yeah,
After I
yeah,
get this Michael Jackson CD, it's on. But
yeah.
when we
Yeah.
look at like the business aspect of things too, how did you decide to choose with your coffee, like what beans you were going to use?
So I just knew from the beginning that I was going to target specialty coffee, and just because that's what I'm into. And I'm like, if I'm going to do this thing, I want to be passionate about it. So I'm like excited to work on it. I'm still working on finding different vendor relationships. The vendor I found for the Brazil beans that we're offering now, I'm really hyped on. They're just someone I found through Instagram. Uh, their family goes back generations to the farm where it's at out of Brazil, and then they have a presence, like a physical presence for their business in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they're just really cool, really easy to work with. They're also one of the few vendors I've come across that is like cool to work with on my scale, because a lot of the vendors are like, man, if you're not ordering a whole pallet, like it's just not going to be cost effective for you to work with us, which I get. I don't hold that against them. But this company, they're just like, yeah, you want just one bag? We'll send you one bag. That's cool. And the pricing was still, fair. They weren't gouging me just because I was a little customer.
Well, we live in a fast-paced world, and what is the one benefit of coffee? Coffee helps save time. When you start trying to maybe get a product going, a bunch of entrepreneurs maybe that are diving into the coffee industry, we're looking at just like with any small product, and somebody looks to a manufacturer or distributor that can help them get their product going. Nobody ever wants to take a risk on a small business or a small little venture, maybe someone's idea or creative passion. They're just like, it's not worth our time to help you out. You know what I mean? And that's when you
Totally.
really want to find a good person who is a distributor or a grower or something that is able to you're able to connect with on a personal level, get to know them, and also get to learn a little bit too in sales. So what would you consider the biggest aspects are for just making an effective product and selling it to the market?
I mean, for me, it's just like, so my background before my current job in the service industry, I worked at REI, Recreational Equipment Incorporated. And man, you never felt like you were a salesperson there because they just, it's not a cheap store to go in. I'll say that, like when I quit working there, I basically quit shopping there because I didn't have my discount anymore. But like the products you have are the best. Like when I'm talking to a customer, I have faith, like if they, if this works for their budget, like they're going to be happy with this. And the other thing they really did great is they stood behind it with their satisfaction guarantee. It's like, man, you try this thing, you have a whole year to try it. And if you're like, man, these hiking boots just aren't doing it for me, come back and we'll help you find another solution, or we'll get you your money back. Um, so I feel like, just candor, honestly, candor and selling something that you actually believe in as far as a product goes. So if the coffee I was making, if I didn't even want to drink it myself, if I'm like, man, this is really cheap and I'm making a good margin, but like I'm not ever drinking my own coffee because it's terrible. That's something that I personally wouldn't be able to handle doing as a salesman, because I just need to be able to believe in what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's a big thing with sponsorships too. Like I would never sell anybody a sponsor that I didn't use myself or I didn't believe in myself, you know. You can easily tell there are people in this world that are really good at selling shit. Uh Sadly, that does not reflect onto the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts because I'll still never buy a box of fucking Thin Mints for $30. That's just nuts. But if you got, I guess you got some almond joys, I might buy some. Then I like the coconut. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Coconut's good. But when it comes to selling stuff too, if you don't believe in the fact of what you're making, what you're producing, and you're trying to sell to the public, like some people are going to ask fucking questions if they look at you, you're holding Starbucks in your hand and you're trying to sell me some small coffee. You know, it's you want to make sure that you believe in your product and you would drink your product and you would live by your product, the same that you would expect your customer to loyally buy your product as well. But when we look at the average amount of sales, what I started noticing is I've actually been really getting interested in sales recently. So I am going to talk a bit marketing. What's the
Sure.
main things that always attract someone's attention? The fucking introduction, that beginning pitch, the thing that hooks them in and lets them sit there and listen to the rest of the speech, lets them maybe pick up the product. When you design a coffee bag, that is a big thing as well. And also trying to find your name, but also the ingredients you work with. Seems like once you get a basis of oh, I want to make coffee, think of a name, then think of the bag design, then think of what exactly coffee beans you're going to use ingredients wise. Seems like that can kind of be last because people just want something that's going to attract their attention and is not too it's not too heavily cost worthy, so they can easily pay a few dollars, get a nice thing of coffee, and then get hit in with the taste.
Yeah, I would agree. I'll say, as far as Portland market isn't necessarily huge for me. Like I'm internet, so it doesn't necessarily matter. But um, if someone was like, "Hey, I'm starting a roastery in Portland," you'd be like, "Man, that's a flooded market to be starting that." Um, I would never get anywhere if I said, "Oh, we have the best coffee beans you've ever tasted," because people would be like, "Well, there's 20 other roasters here who could say the same thing," and it's all true technically. All the loyal customers I've made so far, they're 100% based on there's two things, and one of them is exactly what you're talking about. They like the brand, they like my branding, my logo. They like just the look of it, the vibe of it, the skateboarding related part, and then they like the mission that we give back $1 to kids skateboarding. Like those are my customers. Like they get the product, and then that feedback is like, man, this is good coffee. But that's not why they buy it the first time, because they don't have a clue, right? You got to try it the first time.
Yeah, see, the SPCA did that the complete wrong way. They're like, "Oh, donate to save these animals," and they put fucking Sarah McLachlan in there and play the worst song ever, and people just want to turn it off. You know what I mean? It's nothing catching or interesting, and I mean, you'll donate before you donate to some kid starving somewhere. But when you look at like a company like yourself that donates $1 to go back into kind of the community when it comes to skateboarding as well, that's a company people can get behind because they're noticing that you're not all about yourself. People don't want to think that they're all their money that gets spent on a product is just going right into your pocket and you're just sitting on it somewhere. A lot of people want to know that it's being put to good use. You know, Domino's got really big, and it was either Domino's or I think it was Domino's. They I mean, they got the fascinating oregano on the crust, which makes it so fucking good. But when it comes to a lot of their profits, at least in my town, they were starting to fill up potholes with a lot of the money they were making. And
Yeah, that's cool.
they tackled it from a marketing aspect. As soon as they filled up one of the potholes, I mean, we had huge potholes down here where you fucking hit it and you feel like you just I don't know, like you just hit another car or something. And
Yeah.
they filled it up, the potholes, and then they stamped their logo on top of the pothole. And next thing you know, they got free marketing. Now there's
Yeah,
literally
genius.
advertisement everywhere. People were going off the chains like, if we just buy a pizza, we get food, and then half of it goes back into our streets, so my car doesn't get fucked up. You know, it's
Totally.
that's a good aspect of marketing when it comes to things. And when you're first starting out too, probably what you've noticed with there's building a loyal fan base, like they want that communication aspect. We live in a world now where communication is everything. It is so simple to start something right now. It is so easy, but to make sure that it thrives, you have to build a community aspect and not lose the conversation or the community needs, such as staying in touch with the people that are trying to buy your product, such as letting the community know, maybe even doing a giveaway. These types of things are things that are very beneficial to when you're first becoming an entrepreneur or even starting a company in the first place.
Yeah, and I'd say, back to your point with Domino's, like what the mission is and what I give back to it is really important to me. But I agree 100%. It is also marketing, and like that's not wrong. They can go hand in hand. It's not wrong to use a mission to be marketing because if it's successful, you're also being successful for your mission. That's another reason why we were very intentional when I was trying to decide how I wanted to give back. I'm looking at other companies that do it, and I'm like thinking about making a purchase decision, and I'm like, they say a percentage of the proceeds goes back to such and such, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, what is a percentage, and what does the pro? You know what I mean? I was like, that's very vague. I was like, I'm telling everyone it's $1 from your bag purchase, period. Even if I lose money on the sale, one whole dollar of your purchase is still going back to this. Like first, not after I recoup my expenses, not after I pay myself, $1 off the top first thing.
Yeah, and the community aspect behind it too. I mean, you guys got to work together with other small coffee roasters. I mean, you've talked to someone that I've had on the podcast too, sent me a bag on Pop Coffee Roasters, Josh.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a community aspect. I think for so long, at least like back on like Wolf of Wall Street days and like when like the big marketing and every type of business was trying to take off, we've been living a lifestyle that's kind of implemented still now, but it's starting to fade away a little bit, is step on each other's throats and climb to the top. I'm going to be the winner. Somebody else is coming in second, but it's not going to be me. Now we're living in a world where it's still very common that that's the way of thinking, but it's so much more beneficial if that everybody supported each other, everyone's going to thrive.
Absolutely. I mean, I have found that to be the case. Again, in this industry, in my brief time I've spent in there, like anyone I reach out to, like they're all giving me the time of day, from really big names in the game all the way down to people my size. And it's like, oh yeah, this is how we overcame that obstacle. Or they're like, oh, we tried this and it didn't really work for us, and this is why. Um, there's a there's a few shops in this area that are kind of all getting behind the community over competition is like a hashtag that they're using, and that's like, they're standing behind it. It's like this one shop features a different roaster every single month, but they are a roaster. So like you could say, hey, why would you feature anyone else when you've got your own product? But like they're seeing benefit from it. It's community and it's growing.
I try my best, like with this podcast. I know when it comes off during an episode, like all we do is talk about whatever one thing or one idea, and people just want to come on and kind of shout their product out a little bit too. And I don't look at it like I'm a marketing tool. I look at it like I'm trying to also help you guys as well. We're a community here. Even though I'm not in the coffee community, I'm not in this, but I've connected hot sauce company people with people that own food trucks, people that own restaurants, people that do this, trying to give everybody a type of connection or something to help support both of what they're doing. I'm not saying I'm like a person that's trying to connect people or bridge them together, but I'm trying to show that there's a point of support as well. Like I'm more than happy to be, have you guys as a sponsor. I'm more than happy to do this. I'm more than happy to connect you to other people that I think you're going to go good. What goes good with coffee? Fucking donuts. I know plenty of people that make donuts. I know plenty of people that do donut reviews. I know plenty of people that do blogs. Those are types of people that coffee people should be attacking. It's all from a marketing aspect, which is why I've been getting really fascinated into it too, because surprisingly, everybody's really fucking similar when it comes down to we do have distinct differences and we do have distinctive thoughts, but we all think around the same basis. There's this weird thing going on with technology. Communication is heading in a completely different direction than anyone has expected, and we're actually pretty isolated as people, even though we're supposed to be more connected than ever. Everyone has these thoughts on their mind. Everyone usually brings up the same thing in this podcast where it comes to society and the way we're going, that there needs to be a change. I just think we just need to realize that we're all out here for the same shit. Why don't we just work together? I mean, it's humankind, not human one. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I don't know who to credit with it initially, but another kind of like community over competition, another one that I really like and get behind is together we all win. And it's like, man, if there's something I can do to help you, I feel the same way. It's like my job and purpose isn't to connect, this guy with that guy and that guy with this guy, but it's like if we know each other and we're having a conversation and I'm like, and it triggers a mind and I'm like, man, that might be a beneficial relationship if I kind of connected these two guys real quick. It's just people have been really cool. And, I'm finding a lot more positive than negative. It's just been a really, great experience. I'm not willing to say so far that it's a raging success and I'm going to be quitting my day job in a year or anything like that. But even if it just, puttered out right now, I'd be grateful for what I've experienced and learned already and just the people I've met.
Well, it's the one thing that's always scary for an entrepreneur is what happens if it fails? What happens if it doesn't get progress? But one of the benefits is the complete opposite is the fact is when it does grow, it's like watching a kid grow. It's literally like watching something take off before your eyes, but it's the courage to stick in there and make sure that it ends up hitting the long run. You know, my podcast when I started wasn't any idea to get a business. It was something I was doing with my friends. Started out of like a thing of depression with my buddy that called me on like the brink of suicide. And I realized that we need to be more connected as people and have conversations again. And to see where it's at now from where it started, it's grown and it means a lot to me. But I've also grown myself from the very, very beginning where I'm just talking about different places I've taken a shit to where it's at now. You know, like it's to see myself grow as an individual is the most benefit I've ever got from it. You know, it doesn't matter if this turns into a major thing. It doesn't matter if it ends here. It's just something that we as people need to take shots. We need to do things that we would like to do and just take the risk because you never know where it's going to go. Now, I'm not saying go to your local casino and fucking gamble all your money away, but I'm saying
Yeah.
take a shot, you know, break out the comfort zone a little bit because you're going to never really regret it, you know. And if it doesn't go well, then, you know, it doesn't go well. You can try it again at another point.
Yeah, I'm the kind of guy who takes it personally, like if it were to fail, I kind of would wear that failure as like, hey, I'm a failure. So that's something I need to, be careful of, and I'm trying to speak that truth to others as well. Like, you're more than the sum of like your latest effort. And and you know what? I definitely believe we learn more from mistakes and failures than successes. If I try something and it's easy for me and I do it in the first try, like that doesn't give me much growth. But if I'm like, man, I'm going to do this thing and I fail and I fail and I fail and I try and I try and I try and then I finally overcome it, that's like, look at the journey it was to get there.
With your coffee, have you ever thought about maybe combining the coffee and the skateboard in a whole nother way?
I don't know, such as what?
Call it Westwood Coffee Shop. It's a coffee shop with a skate park.
Yeah, that would be awesome. The
I
closest
mean,
thing to
that is fucking perfect, dude. I'm gonna that's my freaking goal for the year right there was just that idea. Holy shit.
yeah, people do keep asking about a shop. I'm not opposed to a shop, but I'll tell you, the overhead for a shop is like insane compared to what operation I'm running now.
Doesn't
Um,
doesn't that suck though that people can't build things or start things because of how expensive things are now?
yeah, uh, it is interesting that it's preventative. I mean, I think if I decided that was important to me and that was my number one goal in life, then I could work toward it and make it happen. But yeah, it is interesting. As far as the skate park coffee shop idea you had, there is actually a shop in Tennessee. Shoot, I'm gonna blank on what they're called now. but that's literally what they are. They're an indoor skate park with a coffee shop attached. And we've been kind of talking to each other over Instagram about seeing about if I could get them to use my coffee at some point. Um, but when I first came across them, I'm like, man, that's the perfect, you know, uh, connection of those two things.
I figured that idea wasn't new, but I figured Westwood Coffee Shop for you would be just a perfect fit. It seems like
Oh yeah.
that would be like an end goal, but what would you say your next goal would be if you could go, or what I guess the next objective is you're trying to reach with your coffee besides it just becoming a little bit more popular? Like what are you trying to turn this into? Are you trying to turn this into a place where you stock coffee shops with it, stock homes with it? Are you trying to turn this more into like where you can open up your own kind of business selling this as like a giant manufacturer to maybe local grocery stores?
Yeah, I don't want to be giant. I can say that with relative confidence right now. I mean, I'm open to things changing. My next two goals that I think could be good, really good big steps, would be a couple good wholesale accounts, or if I got a subscriber base going. So coffee subscriptions. I mean, you can subscribe to anything now, right? Socks. It's like, hey, sign up for our sock service, and we'll send you one box of socks, every single month, and that costs $20 a month, or whatever.
Dude,
I
what about
Netflix made that popular, and I think if I could get a good base of regular subscribers, that would definitely be a next level.
there you go, dude. Open up a coffee magazine that does skateboards in it as well. There was
Yeah, that
fucking
would be cool.
Thrasher Mag was so popular. You
Hmm.
could create that, but do it in your own kind of talking about brews and then doing interviews with skateboarders. Buck, start a podcast. That's basically a magazine, except that shit's free. Nobody wants to read paper anymore. That's bad for the earth. Let's do video or let's do audio. And next thing you know, bam, bam, bam. It's it's about finding that one progress to the next level. I mean, when you're talking about not wanting to be a giant company, that makes sense to me because when things become manageable, when you start getting like really, really good footing in a company and you feel like, oh, I'm really, really good. Like I can manage this. Like this is easy now. Maybe I can take on a little bit more. That's when you start seeing some things start to fail. I've seen so many small businesses that do really good when they're one store and like we're opening up a second location. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Where's that? Well, it's going to be located the next state over. I'm like, oh, sweet. Then they end up going under completely in both businesses because it's just different aspect. It's a different state, different people. They don't want that type of thing. They're not used to new, so they're not going to stop in. Next thing you know, you're going and digging yourself in the hole rather than trying to get yourself out, all because you took a shot. That does suck. And I mean, sometimes that shot is needed to be take, but like for me, I have this podcast. I post every day, always a new person. I've thought so many times like, "Oh, well, I could definitely do another podcast or something," but then I know I would eventually get too much in the hole where one would be lacking.
Yeah, and you know what? I'd say I'm not like a small business whiz or anything, but in my experience, the entrepreneur, that isn't the same person that can scale something. So what I'm saying is, I think a successful entrepreneur has a specific skill set that makes him really good at that. But guess what? He is not the same person who's good at managing lots of people and lots of locations, because that is a very non-entrepreneurial role. Um, so I think if you're thinking about scaling and you're serious about it, you've got to say, hey, I need to hire that person because I'm not him.
Now, have you thought about maybe branching off and trying a different brew style as well? Maybe switching off into different types? I've talked to Josh from Pop Coffee, and he's got really kind of the same medium brews, but there's like a medium dark, there's a medium light. Is have you tried doing that yet? Because it seems like everyone's got a specific taste. Like, I want the light coffee. Oh, I want a medium coffee. Oh, I want a dark coffee. I'm like, what's the difference? And then you start to realize, okay, that's actually this. There's actually a very, very specific difference.
Yeah. I have, so the current offerings that I have, I've got Ethiopian natural that's just like a very fruit forward, fruity tea like body type coffee. And I do that on a light roast. Then I have a Brazil, which is more accessible traditional coffee. This is like people that want their coffee to taste like coffee, which honestly is the bulk of my consumers. And that one I do more of a medium, almost medium dark, but I'd say a medium roast. And then I have a Rwanda that I do like a light medium roast on. The nice thing about being my size and scope is I've got total control. So every once in a while, I'll get a customer that at first their relationship started like we're just talking to each other on Instagram because we like some of the same stuff. And then I'll notice they put an order in and I can literally tell them, hey, I know based on our friendship that like you like a light roast coffee. Do you care if I try with your bag, if I try making it a little lighter than I normally would? And let me know what you think about it. So those are the kind of things, I'll have to let go eventually if I want to scale, which is part of why I don't want to ever scale too big because I want to be able to have the freedom to make those kind of changes.
With the Ethiopian roast, is there a specific name that you give it? Like when it comes to Mall Grab Coffees, your brand, but then we talk about the types of coffees. There's always things like someone tosses in like Sunrise Cougar or some random ass name that catches somebody's attention. Have you thought about maybe naming the different types of roast or flavors?
Yeah, so I have thought about it a lot. It's something that's fun for me to think about, and I have a few other friends that are I'm my brother's my main graphic designer, and I can't thank him enough for the success of just how the brand came out and how it looked and how well it's being received. Um, so one of the in the coffee industry, what you usually do if it's a single origin, that means there's only one kind of bean in that bag from one particular area. You just call it what it is. So Ethiopia Guji, because that's where it's from. When you get to the funny and like cool names, that's when it's a blend. So it's like, hey, there's some Ethiopian beans in here, but there's also some Colombian beans and a little bit of Brazil beans. And we put all those together in our proprietary way. And since we did it and we're the only ones who knows what's in it, we're going to call it what we want. So to answer your question, I am working on our blend. It's going to be called Mr. Sparkle, which is another Simpsons reference. Anyone who knows Simpsons will know that episode where Homer finds that box of dish soap that looks like it has his face on it, and it's called Mr. Sparkle. And it's going to be just a really pow, like Zam, like just the biggest fruit explosion flavor I can find. So I'm working on different origins right now to blend together to really make that name that I want to use match when you're drinking it. And you're like, man, this I like how they call this Mr. Sparkle because this cup is really like, shines.
You got to make one brand called Quickie Brew from
Yeah,
the Quickie
yeah.
Martin Simpsons, man. So that's where the Simpsons falls into play in this company. You're a big Simpsons fanatic.
Giant Simpsons fan. It's my favorite show. The
It's the
logo
only
has a
show
little
that's
bit of
probably
this.
predicted the most things in this world correctly.
Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable sometimes when you look at that list. The obvious one is, them calling President Trump when they had that episode, the future episode that was like 10 years ago, and Elisa's like coming into office and she says something about like, well, I have my work cut out for me taking over office for President Trump. And I'm not going to get into the political commentary. I'm just saying it's funny how they called that.
That shows it's probably one of the longest running sitcoms, and I think it's just because their references stay relevant. You know what I mean? It's that whole aspect of it too. Family Guy gets so popular only because they still crack jokes that are for things happening now.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at The Simpsons, even those references that they crack, they're stuff that connects people, making it a real experience, which is what's important in anything. People want to find a way to connect. When people want to shop and buy a product, they want to feel like they can connect to the owner of the company, especially loyal customers too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Anybody will take a free sample, but to
Totally.
actually buy the product and to actually spend money and invest into a company, they have to truly be able to connect with you as an owner as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, if you were going to create a coffee, what types do you try and study the beans? Do you try and find out what is easily producible in your area to figure out which brand you want to work with? Like we talk about Ethiopia and Brazil. Is there that much of a style difference? Is that how you choose the flavor of roasts?
Yeah, so being a relative newbie to the industry, I'm learning a lot as I go. And then I'm just leveraging relationships of people that I've made that know more than me. I'm like, hey, buddy, thanks for being willing to share your knowledge because I'll never be able to catch up with you. Like if I quit my job and studied coffee full time for 5 years, I'd still wouldn't know as much as you. there are generalities, like, generally speaking, if you get any African bean, it's gonna probably be pretty fruity. So I try to just have 2 or 3 offerings that are fairly different from each other. That's why I like to have an Ethiopia that's gonna be fruity. I like to have a Brazil or Colombia that's gonna taste, again, from the average consumer, they're gonna drink it and they're gonna be like, "Oh, this tastes like coffee." That's what they want. They want their coffee to taste like coffee, They don't want to taste it and be like, "Oh, this reminds me of blueberries." Um, and then I usually have a third one that it's just something I came across that I personally think is interesting and I wanna try it.
I wonder, what's really, really fascinating for me is when I like eating an actual coffee bean.
Yeah,
A lot of people think that's disgusting, but I actually find it pretty soothing as well. Like it's easier to chew on. Sometimes you want to get that chew instead of a drink. And I think what you could do is maybe you could use such like a marketing aspect, but selling like a pack of snacks, like how gummy bears are, but do it with coffee beans. Instead, maybe ground up some blueberry paste, maybe ground up some cocoa powder, throw it on top of a coffee bean or something, be able to sell it into individual packs depending on what type you can kinda get it to taste like your brand of coffee.
yeah, not it's kind of reminds me of, those chocolate covered espresso beans.
Exactly, yeah. See, that would be something I would buy. I've sometimes you don't want a full-on drink, you'd rather just have that caffeine in your pocket.
Totally. Yeah, I see that, the portability of it and the time, you don't gotta sit there and make it, you just freaking eat it. Um, my 2-year-old, when I'm roasting, every time I get the beans out and I'm letting them cool, he will eat just plain coffee beans. He'll eat them until I make him stop. He won't quit eating them, and I'm like, "There's no way you like those," but he just sits there and chows down.
Then you gotta turn it into a gum.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Coffee gum, dude. If I
Yeah,
could chew a piece of gum that tastes like coffee, I mean, I know everybody hates the coffee breath, but shit, dude, getting
no, that's
caffeine from coffee, that's why run gum is so popular.
totally, yeah, it's all, natural caffeine, coffee gum.
And where do you want, I guess, really to kind of see this progress into the future? Like we talk about like, the manufacturing, the understanding and everything of it, but even with the community aspect of it too, what have you really kind of learned about it at all? That kind of wants to aim your direction somewhere.
Um, Man, it's just I don't know how to say it, less generically, but just the community of, like, so being a small guy trying to get going, I've really seen firsthand, like, how big a deal it can be for me if one other company that's a lot bigger just, like, thought something cool. I posted on Instagram and they reposted it, and I'm like, "Man, that took them, like, 30 seconds." They're like, "Oh, this looks kinda cool. I'm gonna just give this guy a shout out. I never heard of him before." But the impact to me is, like, way more than 30 seconds, and it's like, I feel like now almost part of my success is that I wanna be doing that for as many people as I can, and it's like the bigger my audience and the bigger success, the more of an impact I can have for other, like, people and products and brands that I believe in that I'm, like, trying to get an audience.
Yeah, it seems like the coffee roasters are the ones that are very, very community driven. But the ones that are the snobs, I would say, would be the ones that prefer, I prefer only espressos. I prefer only lattes. Oh, I prefer having a leaf in my coffee. The ones, there's like professional pourers. You want to get those people into your community, but those are the ones that are the pickiest the most. Like I've had a few conversations with some and they always have this like sense of entitlement, like, oh, this roast sucks, this is that, I prefer this, it's got to be done over that. It's like, isn't it just meant to be enjoyed how somebody would enjoy it, but being very particular on coffee? I mean, I guess I understand it. People have their brands. I'm pretty sure my grandfather just strictly drinks 7-Eleven coffee. He says that it's the stuff that could fuel anything. And I'm like, it's
Yeah,
just jet fuel, it's nothing new. But it's that's where we start to see interference where with the community aspect of coffee it's meant to be enjoyed and shared by others and it's really meant to help, I guess, in a way of stopping really procrastination and kind of getting your tasks done. That's what coffee has always been a benefit towards. Like before work, making sure you get through the day, making sure this type of thing. It's now turning into this thing like we're trying to be healthier as people. We're trying to turn it into a way cleaner source of natural coffee without all the harmful additives in it. Rise in organic coffee. Um,
Totally.
just because it has no preservatives, it's more natural, more in touch with the original root rather than adding artificial flavors or adding any type of harmful chemicals that can actually affect your body. I see a benefit in it because when like Josh sent me coffee, just the smell of it, it wasn't pungent like most coffees are. And for some reason, we've been living in this world where it needs to be very strong. It needs to catch our attention. I think our attention should be caught more with our eyes rather than our nose and our taste. Because if something's so strong that you can taste it all day in your mouth, it might not be good for you.
Well, and a huge part of that is a couple common misconceptions, which is people think a stronger coffee has more caffeine, and they think a darker roast has more caffeine, and neither of those are true, actually.
People also think that decaf has no caffeine in it, and it does.
Right? Yeah, it's been through a decaffeinating process, but there's still some that remains.
See, people drink coffee for the caffeine. I'm an insomniac and I have ADHD. Caffeine does not work on me. I could drink a pot of coffee and go right to bed afterwards.
Yeah, same here. I drink it because I enjoy the taste of it, and I
It's
and I like
it's
how it's multifaceted. Like you were saying earlier, you can drink it in the morning because you're like, let's get up, let's go. But my other favorite time to have it is when I want to have a long, slow conversation, with a friend, and I want to sit there and enjoy a cup of coffee.
It's just like smoking a cigar in a way. When you sit down with a coffee, it's not meant to be like a Starbucks coffee or something that you can hurry up and slurp down or something. It's meant to be sitting and having a conversation with someone and seeing where it goes. That was like the kind of the reference I always use for this podcast with a conversation, just two people talking and chatting and uncovering things about each other. It turns into when you grab a coffee and you sit on your front porch, you're kind of limited to that. You're limited. You can't really go anywhere until your coffee's done. So you're kind of sitting and enjoying all aspects and details of the world around you and truly immersing yourself in everything and really being in the moment. That's the same thing with a conversation. That's the same thing that you'll have with someone over a cup of coffee. When you truly, it's why all businesses take place in that aspect. Like we look at why the fuck is a cigar labeled for wealthy businessmen and why is coffee related to any business meeting or any meeting with a partner or some type of thing? It's because it's meant to be sit there and be in full immense conversation, which we've always had over this particular type of drink.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, I mean, it's like I said, the coffee industry is something I'm trying to understand a little bit more. We're fueled by it, but where do you think this is going to go, or how do you think it's going to affect you as a distributor when it comes to the healthy options that people are trying to choose? You're seeing a lot of people start to look towards tea. The only reason I drink coffee is because I don't like tea.
Yeah, I'm not a big tea guy myself. I think the way it's trending is beneficial though, because another health related aspect that you mentioned is that more I think more and more people are going to be drinking it black because they're going to be like, man, I don't want to give up my caffeine, but I want to be healthy, so I guess I'll quit drinking the frappuccino with caramel drizzle. Excuse me, because I want to cut my sugar down, but I don't want to cut my coffee habit completely, so I'm going to switch to black.
And also, when you look at like the home roasters, the home brewers, the ones that use like the chemistry set, looks like you're cooking up meth on your stove trying to brew coffee.
Yeah,
That gets very intimidating for a lot of people too. And it's actually surprisingly pretty easy once you get a setup.
and that's one of my to do lists is I want to start taking advantage of the IGTV on Instagram. And I think what I want to try to do is like, hey man, here's the non snobby beginner way to start to try to do this yourself at home. And you probably have a lot of stuff already that you could use without having to go buy a bunch of equipment.
Creating really more of showing people a way that it's actually more accessible than they think.
Yeah, like you don't have to go spend, $200 on the special scale and another, $140 on the special grinder. Like start where you're at. Just look, this is the kind of stuff you need. Do you have any of this? Cool. This is how you can make what you have work for your first try.
Well, we intake information by learning from it and watching it. Somebody can give you directions online. Like, it's simple. You can do it in these 5 steps. I guarantee to you, if you read those 5 steps to me and you asked me to do it, I would fuck it up. I need to see it done first, and then I can copy that and be able to redo it again.
Totally. And once you try it, once you try it the first time, then you really things start to click.
Yeah, definitely get the gears grinded too. And that's the whole point of coffee, you
Yeah,
know?
grind the gears and grind the beans.
Damn, that was a good one. How long did it take you to think of that one?
I just been waiting the whole time. No. Grind the gears, grind the beans, and then grind that ledge.
Well, I really appreciate you, Wes, coming out and doing the podcast. I kind of want to give you here a minute at the end to kind of promote your content, such as your page, where people can pick up your coffee, and a little bit about your organization too that you're trying to raise money for.
Okay, yeah, cool. So Mall Grab Coffee, it's just at Mall Grab Coffee on Instagram or mallgrabcoffee.com. And $1 from every bag you guys buy goes back to kids skateboarding. Currently, my partnership is the organization I already partner with in Portland, which is Skate Church PDX, at Skate Church PDX on Instagram. It's just the oldest skate park in Portland. It's a free skate park for kids to come. They don't have, they just got to sign a liability waiver, and then it's free, completely free to them. And especially here in the Portland winters when it's raining just 3 or 4 months straight, it's a really great avenue for them to just have a safe, dry place to skate.
Right on, man. Well, I really appreciate you, Wes, for coming out and doing the podcast, and you get to sign us off.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for listening to Out of the Blank. It has been a blast having this conversation. And, after listening to this one, hopefully you're inspired to go out and have a conversation with someone today, learn something maybe you didn't know.
I was expecting a coffee bean reference, but I like that ending.
I was not quick enough on my feet for the beans.
Ah, that's a good one. Hey, look at that. You made it to the end of the episode. Let me tell you a little bit about a sponsorship with Mall Grab Coffee, where you can use the coupon code blank and get 30% off one or more coffee beans. That's right. Use the coupon code blank. But I'm telling you, just use the coupon code, get 30% off coffee beans. I mean, it's less expensive. Who doesn't want to save money? Are you that person that goes to Starbucks and wants to spend, I don't know, like $15 on a coffee, then buy a CD like from Bobby Brown or Michael Jackson? Like, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, beat it's good and all, but sometimes you just want a coffee.